What's up, folkers? Snap turtle in the van. On my way to get it washed while I wait for the next thing to come up. Anyway, today I'm gonna talk about something a little different. Well, it's not different. It's the basis. I'm gonna talk about the basis of all the problems we're facing today as humanity, as human beings. And it has to do with the relationship between the elites and the proletariat, okay? Between the elite and the proletariat. Now, the elites are the people who have all the money, all the power, all the influence, right? They move around in circles filled with people that are similar to them. They are the minority, okay? These proletariats, these elites are the minority in every case, because resources. Okay, so we have to understand how the elites gain the wealth and the power they gain. Okay, it's not because they have billions of dollars sitting in the bank. Okay, as a matter of fact, most elites, most people who are super wealthy, are billionaires, millionaires, upper millionaires. They might have a few million sitting in the bank, actual cash, right, that they can pull out of the bank. But mostly what they have are access to resources. They invest in resources. They invest their money in things that are tangible, that can be traded and used, okay, that are going to be very crucial to human life. What I mean by crucial to human life, all the things that we enjoy, that we have to go to the supermarket and pay for, the gas, the water, all these things that we take for granted, but don't really have control over, they have control over. So you're talking about a small group of people that have control over most of the resources in the world. And they don't really care about cash money. They can, it's nothing to them. You know, why do you think they have black cards and whatever the case? Because they can have a black card with unlimited max and just spend whatever. But the thing is, they trade and own resources that back that up. So they're making money off the interest that they make, off of the things that they invest in. Okay? So they invest their money, and they invest to the point where they can pretty much live off the interest, and not even all the interest. They can probably, the smart ones can live off of probably 10 to 12% of the interest they make. They have that much resources that they have invested in. Okay? Whereas the proletariat like myself, like many of you, the people that have to work for a living, the people that have money in the bank and that's all they have for the most part, they might own a house, they might have a bank account with about $20,000 or $30,000 in it or less, and they own a car, they might have a pink slip to a car, they're paying off their house currently, and they might have money in some mutual funds or a little bit of Bitcoin or things like that, but they don't really own any real resources. Okay? And so essentially what's going on is they're beholden to the elites, because the elites own these resources that they need to survive in this world. The food that we get come from very few places. The farms, the ranches and whatever the case may be are typically this thing. Monsanto has a monopoly on the food in this country that is grown in this country, because the small farms, they're putting those small farms out of business. They're taking them to court, knowing that if these farmers had the money to fight them in court, they would lose, but they don't. So they have to settle, or they have to sell their business to Monsanto or give their business to Monsanto because their seed ended up on their property or somehow. Okay? So now, whoever controls the majority of the resources that human beings need control those human beings, essentially. They control the economy. They control they have the most of the power because the power comes from the currency. The power comes from the credit. So what you have are people like the elites. They create an atmosphere where the proletariat, one group of proletariats are fighting against another group of proletariats on the behalf of the elites. So let's say you have two groups of elites that have opposing views. They're in they don't like each other. They're in conflict. They'll use the proletariats within that same group or that have those same ideals, but not really, because at the end of the day, the elites only care about what they can obtain and control and continue to hold the reins of power over. So they'll it's like a proxy war, okay? This group of elites over here rile up their group of proletariats to go against the proletariats on the other side, but they use the elites on the other side as the enemy, and they clump them in with the proletariats on that same side. You understand what I'm saying? So basically what you have is the proletariats fighting in a war that they will ultimately lose. Both sides will lose this war. And the only people that win in these wars are the elites. Because they lose nothing. They lose nothing. So when they sense that the proletariats are rising up and starting to become aware and want more of the pie and want control of their own lives, they'll attack them using the proletariats on their side. So what we have is the elite sitting back in their ivory towers, creating conflict. They're creating conflict because they want that power, and it's ultimately in the human in the human mind. We ultimately want to resist power. We want to resist. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't care what kind. If you're you can be a statist, you can be the ultimate statist. But at the end of the day, you'll resist against some form of power, some form of elitism. Okay. So this is very important. This is why we're in the state that we're in as human beings. And this is why it's been this way for thousands of years. It's always ever since individuals or the minority took the reins of power over the group or over the majority. There has been conflict, continual conflict. It doesn't stop. And that's essentially the idea behind Marxism, right? If you understand what Marxism is, it's basically about conflict. There will always be conflict between those in power and those who don't have the power. There will always be conflict because those who don't have the power will always resist those who have the power. So the elites, the people in power, will always try to find ways to keep the conflict from reaching them ultimately. So they're directing the conflict between the two groups of proletariats, or the three groups of proletariats, or the four groups of proletariats. Take, for instance, you have Antifa. Okay, you have Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and these are groups. These are groups of proletariats that are fighting against another group of proletariats, or another set of groups of proletariats, like the Proud Boys, the Outright, and these other groups. You know what I'm saying? The red pill takers, whatever you want to call them, the MAGA people, all that. So essentially, these groups are being encouraged by the wealthy on that side, like George Soros, the Clintons, whoever else, right? Whereas on the other side, you have the elites over here egging these people on, right? Donald Trump, David, whoever you want to, y'all know. So you have these two proletariat groups, or these two sets of proletariat groups, constantly in conflict with each other, and ultimately nothing happens. Nothing gets accomplished because you can destroy either group. One side can win over the other side, but all that's going to happen is the elites on this side. Let's say this side loses. Okay, this side wins. All this side is going to do is create another faction, another group of factions to fight against, and continue the conflict. Meanwhile, these both parties are eating well, sitting pretty on all their resources and all their power. And this is basically what you have. This is the idea behind Marxism, and that's why Karl Marx always railed against the elite, the powerful people, the wealthy people, the people that have control over most of the resources. And you hear bad shit about Marxism. You know what I'm saying? Because ultimately they say, oh, this is communism and socialism and whatnot. But that's not really the idea behind it. The idea, what I believe he was saying, is that no one should be in power. There should be no elites. There should be no minority ruling over the majority. And conversely, the majority shouldn't be ruling over the minority. What should be is everyone is acting on their own accord. They're minding their own business. They're doing their own thing. It's a free market, right? You stay in the free market. You do what you want to do. You create your own path. You control your own. You control your own life. You don't have someone from 3,000 miles away telling you what you can and can't do, what you can and can't own. You are ultimately in control over your own destiny. And what your ideals shouldn't encroach or infringe upon someone else's ideals or someone else's freedom. What you believe should be what you believe. And if you want to get together with a group of people that believe the things that you believe, that's fine and good. But then you should leave the people alone that don't believe in what you believe. If they want to do their own thing, allow them to do their own thing. You stay with your like-minded people and live how you want. If I live in a village somewhere, I should be concerned what's going on in my village, as long as everybody in my village is of the same mind. If we want to have a leader, we can have a leader. If we want to have an elder that is a spokesperson between village for your village, so to communicate and to maybe trade with other villages or nomads, wherever they want to be, then that should be what it is. We shouldn't be pushing our ideals on the other people because 51% of us believe the same thing. Those 51% of us shouldn't affect the 49% over there. If the 49% want to believe what they want to do what they want to do, as long as they're not hurting other people, as long as they're not causing problems, as long as they're not stealing and encroaching and infringing on the 51%'s ideals and way of life, let them go over there. We stay over here. And even if that 49% wants to break it up, 10% here, 10% there, 5%, 4%, another 10%, adding up to 49%. Not everyone is going to want to do the same thing. And that should be okay. That should be okay. And that's ultimately the problem with power structure. Okay, when you have a power structure, when you have the elite ruling over the proletariat, this is this can't be accomplished. This can't be accomplished. We can't live the way we want to live as long as we have the elite telling us what we can and can't do, or when we have the elite pushing the proletariat to elect them as their representative and ultimately make laws on behalf of those proletariats. I mean, come on. So basically what I'm saying is we need to get out of the mindset of relying on others to dictate how we live, our way of life. What, you know what I'm saying? I don't need, if I want to go off in the woods and build a freaking cabin and live my life by myself in my family, if I want to be an isolationist and mind my own business, I ain't hurting nobody. I'm hunting, I'm gathering. You know, I have my own access to water. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just living in nature. I should be able to do that. I shouldn't have to get a permit and live on and get a permit so I can have permission to exist in federally owned forestry or whatever the case may be. Or I should be able to live in the plains and start a farm and raise my own food and raise my own animals and grow my own plants and exist with others that want to do the same and live our own lives. Anyway, that's all I got for y'all today, for now.